Hello, okay, so for today's video I'm going to talk about how I created these 4 watercolour paintings in my sketchbook, and I'm inspired by the weather outside here in the UK. It's very wintry, and I also wanted to use quite a minimalist colour palette and a new colour palette for me. I was going to buy sepia at the weekend, but I actually rummaged through my paints and found a charcoal grey from Schminke, and I'm using Paynes Grey and Phythalo Blue as well. And the charcoal grey turned out to look how I imagined the sepia would look, although I can't say that for sure. And it's a kind of browny grey, and then obviously the Paynes grey is more of a bluey grey, and the Phthalo blue just gives that sort of bit of colour just to add interest. So I really liked this colour palette, and I'm just being quite intuitive and experimental with these landscapes. I'm working on doing the landscape in the centre, and I'm mainly laying the paint down wet on dry and then using the water to create a sort of wet on wet look. And for the very last painting, I just did a very minimal amount of work, and I ended up with a painting that really did look like it had trees, and I was really happy with that. So the brush that I'm using is this really nice size 2 from Da Vinci, and it's a Casaneo, and the series number is 490, and I really like it because it goes to a very nice point, so you can do quite thin lines, but then you can also use the body of the brush to create quite wide, big shapes. And generally what I'm doing is I'm laying the paint down, and I'm trying not to disturb it too much. I'm really letting the watercolour move around how it wants, but then in the areas of the painting where perhaps I don't quite like the shapes or the edges, I am going over those, and I'm really trying to get a nice balance between very dark areas and very light areas. And then the sketchbook that I'm using is my Hahnemuhle, and that's a 250 GSM, so it's quite heavyweight, and it's 100% cotton. So I think that doing 4 paintings in your sketchbook, or you could do 2, it's a good number to do. I found by the end of the 4th one I was sort of done, and I had to just pack up and take a break and walk away from them. But I was really happy with the session, and I did put music on in the background, and I just got really into it. It's just a really relaxing thing to do, and it also improves your watercolour skills and gives you ideas for maybe more finished paintings. Or if your sketchbook painting works out really well, you can take it out of the book and put it in a frame. If you try something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you use a different colour palette, that would also be interesting to hear about. And I do really believe that a huge part of painting is about the process and what you get out of the process. So even if you're quite new to watercolour painting, you can just set aside some time and do some paintings in your sketchbook, and just, maybe put on some music, make a nice cup of tea, and just really try and enjoy the actual process of making the paintings. And it doesn't really matter what the paintings look like. The important thing is to do it and to, really enjoy the experience of doing it. Okay, so for the rest of this demonstration, I'm going to put the music up, and then I'll jump in again towards the end. so for this one I decided to start it off a little bit differently, and I just did these 3 shapes of those 3 colours, and I then ran my brush across the top. And actually what happened is I got these quite tree-like forms, and I've been wanting to experiment more with my tree painting lately, and I'm taking inspiration from the trees outside my house. So when this happened, I decided to leave it, and it was just a really simple painting, but I was also getting to the end of my sketchbook session, so I was really happy with the way that these turned out. And I think the one on the left is quite a nice contrast to the one on the right, and then I went back into the one on the right just to try to sort of darken that central part, and I ended up blending that down a bit. And I think going back into your paintings is always a little bit of a risky thing to do, because sometimes it doesn't work out, but again, I was quite happy with how this one turned out. I do have a pre-recorded course available called Minimalist Watercolour Landscapes and Beyond, where I go into some of the techniques that I've used in this video in more detail, and there's other ideas for minimalist landscapes in there as well. I'll put a link in the description of this YouTube video, but I really hope that you've enjoyed this demonstration and that you found it useful. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, then please consider subscribing, and please like the video, and if you leave a comment as well, it's always nice to hear from you, and I'll hope to see you in the next one. Okay, thank you, bye.